Welcome to the Keys to the Office podcast, where we empower Black women to take charge of their career paths and earn what they deserve. We understand the journey to success can be challenging, but we're here to provide the tools and the resources to really help you overcome any obstacles and reach your full potential. Each episode will bring you expert advice from HR professionals and industry leaders, as well as real-life stories from Black women who have succeeded in elevating their careers and income. So join us and let's unlock the doors to your dream job and the income you deserve. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, Keys family. We are in for a treat. I think a special one for all of you who desire to go the route of entrepreneurship. We've got a serial entrepreneur here, MaBinti Yillah, who has done so much. And when I talked to her, I guess about a week or two ago, I was fascinated. And the more we spoke, I was like, wow, you did that too. And, this person, and you worked with this person. The story is so deep. And I'm also excited about what she is working on now, which is so critical, especially as we talk about our needs in the mental health space. So without further ado, join me in welcoming MaBinti to the podcast today.
Yes, it's such an honor. When Tony, told us about this opportunity, I had to jump on it.
Yeah.
I'm really excited to, definitely talking through our conversation that we had, I was really excited to have a real conversation with you. I'm super pumped and super honored.
Awesome. So tell us who you are. Tell us what you do. And I know that's broad, but let's start there.
Yeah, I mean, that's always like a complicated kind of conversation because what do? I do a lot of things, right?
Yeah.
I think you said it best, and I'm definitely a serial entrepreneur. So I like to say my Clark Kent job, so to speak, is, I do government consulting. I work with businesses who are trying to work with the government. I help them put up their communication and strategy to be able to attract government business. I've worked with universities to help them develop their brand strategies to be able to develop a government sales pipeline. So really just the branding and marketing strategies is what I spend a lot of my time doing. I also manage and run a production company, a multimedia production company, Common Sense Entertainment. We've just released 2 episodes from our very, so far so good, amazing food show called Damn That's Good. So I'm an executive producer as well. And then more recently, I'm a startup founder, working on a company to, improve access to mental health in a Muslim community. So a lot of different things. And I'm also a person that loves poetry. And I'm a geek. I'm a geek too. So occasionally I drop one comic book reference. You'll probably hear me drop a couple comic book references throughout this conversation.
I love it. I love the fact that you gave yourself permission to pursue these different routes, right? That aren't necessarily aligned, right? But you didn't feel the need to sort of take one path or solely pursue one passion. And I actually want to hear a little bit more about like what drove you to that point to say, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do this and I'm going to do this and I'm going to do it all now and I'm going to do it all well. Like there was no fear, or was there fear, and how did you overcome that?
No fear.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I would say for the ZIPA bit was definitely fear because it's outside of my comfort zone. Like it's mental health. I have no experience with mental health, but the other two, I mean, it was just more so like, okay, you have experience. I've had media experience since I was in high school. I started my very first media job was working as the editorial assistant for Voice of America, and I was transcribing scripts from French to English.
Wow.
While also learning how to edit audio as well. So, and then, I worked for Young DC where I had the opportunity to be on a teen radio show as a host, co-host. And then, interview some of my favorite artists of all time, as well. And so the media bit was always something I had been doing anyway. And the government bit, I have my entire professional career has been within the federal government, within the public sector. So, pursuing the consulting as well as the media company was just a kind of an extension and a natural evolution of what I was already doing anyway.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, we kind of took it back to what you were doing in high school. What did you want to be when you grew up? Kind of, is this the path you saw yourself taking?
It's me making a comic book reference. Be honest. Early on, I was obsessed with Lois and Clark, with Dean Cain and Terry Hatcher.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that Lois in particular was such a badass. She was so confident, self-assured, and she was really, granted, Superman loved her. So like she had the protection of like, she could go to like, corrupt gangsters and question them because she had backup, let's be honest. But
yes,
even without that, she had a certain fearlessness that I really, really admired, and really, like, I would say in some way kind of sparked that desire to do something big. And I would say just seeing that early on as a young kid, about 5-6 years old. And then also I'd say living singles, Khadijah, and as well as Maxine Shaw. Like those two had such a phenomenal impact and imprint on me as a young girl, to see like Khadijah was a business owner, a media company, right? And even though it's fictional, like again, these are all fictional things, but I think when you're young, and granted, my parents are both professionals, both college educated, both have law degrees and great that, and so I saw like a lot of professional Black excellence through seeing them and seeing their friends and being around those type of people. But there's something about seeing it in a fictional sense or seeing it in TV in an entertainment sense. It's for some reason kind of has because we spend so much of our time watching television that, we don't recognize just how much of an impact and influence these characters can have on us. And for sure, like I say it all the time, like that, like Maxine in particular and Khadijah like really like inspired me. Like I want to be like them. I want to be a boss. It was because of those, like I said, Lois Lane, Terry Hatcher's Lois Lane, Maxine, as well as, like I said, Khadijah, really, really influential in molding that and inspiring, I would say, nurturing that desire to be ambitious. And of course, like my parents, right, as well.
Yeah. So you talked about your parents being college educated, having law degrees. Talk to me a little bit about your educational journey post high school and what that looked like.
Well, it's so funny because when I was one of my very first government jobs was working when I was like 16, 17. I was working with the Department of Justice. It was through student employment program, right? And I never forget, I won't mention the agency, sub-agency, but I was working for a particular sub-agency, pretty well-known sub-agency within the Department of Justice. And I remember the lawyer saying, are you going to college? And so in my mentality, because I've got college, the way I was raised, it was not a question of whether I was going to college. It was what college I was going to. So that framework, right? There was an assumption from her, like, oh, college is such an aspirational thing, versus the way I was raised. Of course, I'm going to college. Like that's not even a thing. The aspiration is going to the best college. That was the aspiration. That was the real goal. And so, of course I was going to go to college, right? It was more of a pick of the litter, right? I wanted to. I'll be honest, I wanted to be in LA. I wanted to go to USC, but USC didn't give me any money. So
next.
Yes. So I ended up going to University of Maryland, and at the time I was like so sad about it. I was like, I really don't want to live near parents.
Really?
But, right. I really did not want to stay home. But I lived on campus, but I didn't want to be close. But it in many ways, and of course hindsight is 2020, right? It was super important in developing me as an entrepreneur, as a leader, as a manager, I met my business partner there. I met a lot of my team who worked with me at Common Sense. We're all there. We're all Terps.
Wow.
So, and then I wouldn't have, without University of Maryland, if I hadn't gone to university, I wouldn't have had the amazing internship experiences that I had. I've got to meet some of the most powerful people in the world through interning.
Mm-hmm.
Through my Hill internship, I had an opportunity to work for a senator when I was in college. But that wouldn't have happened
Mm-hmm.
probably if I didn't have gone to University of Maryland.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Um, so you went to University of Maryland. What was your major?
English.
Eng-
I know, English lit.
okay. I actually see that. I see that.
Yeah.
Um, then you went on to get an MBA.
Yeah, much later. Much
Yeah.
later in my career, probably. I got my MBA in 2019. So
Okay.
I started that journey about 2016, 2017. But
Mm-hmm.
I had a considerable amount of work experience before I started the MBA journey.
Yeah. Talk to me about the work experience post bachelor's, right? Because you
Right.
had so much going into it, right? That's
Right.
something I talk to a lot of individuals about, the importance of gaining as much work experience as humanly possible before you even get into the formal adult working world, right?
Right.
So whenever possible, the high school internships, the high school volunteer opportunities, the exposure you get, simply raising your hand and saying, I'm interested in this or this, and partnering with someone who can put you on that path.
Right.
I think it's also important. So talk to me about, now you've got all this experience and you have the degree. What do you do next? And how did you, because again, my mind is still blown from our last conversation, develop such a robust career, not just in the government space, but also as a producer, right? In media, right? You've done a lot. And I don't know if you realize that. Like, I hope you understand
Mm-hmm.
that there's so much depth to your experience, right? Talk to us about that, because I imagine there's a college student somewhere that's like, that sounds like a lot, but I wouldn't know where to start. So where'd you start after school?
So, while we were in college, Eugene, my business partner, Eugene Oba, and I had already started, not a company, but like a media group on campus. And we were already doing production work for colleges, the
Wow.
colleges on campus, as well as some outside, organizations. So we were already building that kind of experience. And
Mm,
just like right after college, we were like, let's make this official.
I love it.
Right. And so,
Mhm.
I mean, I got my formal job. I didn't work back with the Justice Department, doing like communications related work. It wasn't very challenging. So I had a lot of time
Yeah.
to develop
Yeah.
other skills. So while, I mean, I would get my work done in within 4 hours. I mean, it's typical communications job in the government. It's not,
Yeah.
no disrespect. Let me not, let me,
I'm
let me
like,
not,
wow,
let
easier than
me
I
not
thought it was.
no, let me not disrespect, the real hardcore communications folks, who are doing public affairs work, whatever. It's just for me because I'm a quick learner and I'm
Mhm.
pretty efficient. It didn't take me that long to do my work. So, so a lot of that time, I would find other things to do. I would ask for a lot of work. So I was developing, learning. I would ask my boss, like she would have me, edit her stuff. I got to write policies, and basically be involved with some of the communication strategy for some of the more legal, not on the legal side, but more of like what's the strategy for some of the new policies that were going to be implemented within my particular division.
Mhm.
So that was a challenging. I mean, that was when because I was bored. I'm be honest, I finished my work pretty quickly.
Mhm.
So because the work wasn't as rigorous, I had an opportunity. We had time to be able to develop common sense entertainment. We had time to be able to I always believe in baptism by fire to bit to the
Mhm.
sense that we found whatever we could and put documentaries together and it's kept producing, right? And so our very first film was featuring a band, and it was a really robust project. It was our first real big documentary project. Because prior to then, we did like a few, short videos, and then I was like, let's do something ambitious. Let's do a documentary.
Mm-hmm.
And so from there, we're just kind of learning. Like, I'm learning how to be a better producer. Eugene is learning how to be a better producer as well, being on our management side, and is managing a team and learning the technical things along the way, and also continuing to have the appetite to learn outside of the field. And so building is really like, while I was working, like I said, my Clark Kent job was working for the government, doing communication work. I'm Supergirl, Superman, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Outside by doing the, sometimes actually literally going from work and going all the way to College Park. That's where we shot our first documentary, and staying there till like midnight to shoot.
Wow.
And then having to get up at 5, 6, or 7 o'clock to get to work on time. So that just making that kind of sacrifice, is a really big part of my ability to be able to juggle both kind of careers.
Wow. Wow. So much I want to dive deeper into, but before I do that, right, we touched on something earlier, and that's your current startup company, right?
Yes.
Which when you told me about it, I thought, wow, like that. And I talk often about mental health and finding the right therapist.
Right.
And I'm a huge proponent of therapy. Talk to me a little bit about your startup and your why behind it too.
Yeah. So ZIPA Health is pretty much, I think all my businesses like babies, but it's probably if you're not supposed to have a favorite child, it's probably my favorite child. Right. Because it's the reason being, it aligns with, and it was so funny, right after I was talking to you, I was on a call with my friend, and I was saying, talking about how I'm pivoting careers, and it's a business that aligns with every aspect of who I am, my faith, as well as my business instincts and skills and habits, the entrepreneur in me, as well as it's fulfilling and gratifying work. So getting back to the company itself, so it's called ZIPA Health, and what we're trying to do at ZIPA Health is to streamline the process of matching Muslims with qualified, culturally competent mental health providers. And the why really comes from the fact that many of us have these different issues, and they're typically in therapy, in the mental health space, there's a sort of one size fit all situation, right? Where it's like, there's this idea that, kind of treat everybody, people who have similar issues there's a similar way to approach that. But what we found, and through my research, the importance of having culturally competent people, because there's certain things that as a Muslim and as a Black person that certain people from other ethnicities would not really necessarily understand, and may look at those different practices or rituals as something that may be problematic, but really it's just a way of people processing things. I'll give a great example for you. A good example would be, one of the things as Muslims that we do is, it's called zikr, which is basically, how like you see Buddhist people with their beads. We have beads as well. So one thing that people do to calm themselves down, to prepare for something, they'll start doing the beads and reciting different things. Allahu Akbar, Astaghfirullah, Allahu Akbar, God is great, Astaghfirullah, God forgive me, these different things, SubhanAllah, all the different things as a way of remembering God, and then through remembering God, finding calm, right? Is a means of finding calm in a situation that's very stressful. To an outside person, it may look like that person's talking to themselves, right? And that is part of the reason why we believe that we need culturally competent mental health, because that potential talking to yourself could be in the wrong hands. I'm going to be prescribing somebody something that really doesn't need to be medically supplied. It's just a practice, so it's really trying to, for me, it's really trying to limit cases where people are being misdiagnosed and mistreated because of a lack of cultural understanding.
Mm-hmm.
So if we can limit that, and then also, therapy is far, there's a lot of data to push to back this. Therapy is far more effective when there's a shared experience.
Yeah.
Right. And a shared cultural identity and identity experience. Because you want to see you want somebody who understands who you are, because not only will that, ensure that the quality will be, you'll be respected and the quality of care will be great, but there's a trust thing.
Mm-hmm.
And you're talking about a community, particularly the Muslim community, that doesn't really have a lot of trust in Americans in general. People in general don't really have a trust in the healthcare system, but particularly, Muslims and other marginalized people have a serious distrust of the healthcare system and mental health in the country as well as around the world. So you're already dealing with somebody who's a little shaky and a little distrustful. You want to alleviate the barriers by creating an environment where there is trust easily early on.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Mm-hmm. And even with that, I've talked to many Muslim therapists who even with that, there are some challenges as well. And so part of our solution is, one, matching Muslims with the therapists that are qualified. But the other part of our solution is making sure that therapists are matched with people that align with their particular needs and preferences, meaning there are going to be people who are going to show up to therapy, who are ready, who know what therapy is and ready for therapy. There are going to be people who are invested in the process, right? The people who can pay for it, all sorts of things, because one of the things that we found, there's a 30 to 60% churn rate within mental health in terms of, retaining clients. And it costs the industry as a whole. I know this because I had to do a pitch deck. Shout out to Halcyon Incubator. Shout out to my fellows.
Yes.
I know this because I had to do a pitch, so I know the numbers very well. $160 billion. The industry as a whole loses $160 billion due to clients not showing up, and not that not being able to keep clients is a costly, not being matched with the right client is costly for their therapists. Because imagine, right? You're spending all this time developing your plan. The person shows up maybe for the first session, and then they're like, I don't like this anymore. I'm not showing up for the next session. And that's that, right? Also opportunity cost. The opportunity cost right there is like the time that you spend dealing with that person, you could have been serving somebody who's really ready, who's really invested in it and has a longer value, customer value, right? So that's one of the reasons why we're really focused at ZIPA Health. We're really focused on the pre-vetting the process, making sure that we're not only pre-vetting both, we're pre-vetting both the client as well as the therapist before we match them, so that there is really that best quality, that best fit, so that nobody wastes their time.
Did you say 160 billion?
Yeah.
Wow.
It might be 150 billion. My bad. I always mess up the numbers, but it's a lot.
That is a lot.
And lost revenue. I think it's 150. I think it's 150. My fellows will probably laugh at me because during the pitch, I kept messing up the numbers.
Really?
I think it's 150. Yeah. I kept saying 160. I kept switching it during our pitch practices. So they're probably laughing. If they hear this, they'll probably laugh at that. I still messed it up. But I think it's 150 actually. But nonetheless.
Somewhere between 150 and 160.
Yeah, nonetheless, that's a lot of loss of annual revenue because of a lack of compatibility.
So it's not enough to recognize that maybe therapy and that level of support would be valuable in your life. You actually have to be ready to commit to the process.
Yes.
And able to commit to the process.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yes.
Have the resources to do so. Exactly. Right. Wow. Wow. And so specifically in the Muslim community and with you as a Muslim woman,
right,
and a Black woman, right? What are you seeing in your research as you work on ZIPA Health and really develop it and grow it, which is a much needed platform. So I'm grateful for that. But talk to me about the challenges you see in that space as a woman, and what that has looked like, either finding therapy, um, or, or even securing that and moving forward. What are the barriers to that as a Black woman and Muslim woman that you've seen?
Yeah, I mean, it's the supply, right? The
Mm,
biggest issue within the mental health space, and it's not just Muslims, it's like the space in general,
in
is
general,
there
yeah.
are a lot of there's not enough. The demand is so high, but there's not
Mhm.
enough people to fulfill the demand, especially since COVID,
Yeah.
right?
Yes, yes.
The need for therapy has blossomed, um, since COVID. So
Mhm.
that's one of the biggest issues is the supply bit. And then the other thing is a lot of therapists that they themselves are burnt out because of capacity. Like they don't have they don't have the capacity to take on more clients,
Yeah, yeah.
right? And so one of the things that I really really love is something that I'm looking to maybe I'm looking at as well is what are some other resources to get people through a crisis before, if they can't afford therapy, what can we do to get them at least calm for that moment,
Mm.
right? If they're going through a crisis. So that's one of the
Mhm.
things I'm looking at. I'm currently, training and learning how to do all that stuff. Um, I'll reveal in due time what that looks like.
Okay, okay.
But yeah, I'm being trained in that work. And so learning about, I think that's one of the ways to not say not really fix the supply problem. You can't fix the supply problem. You need to produce more therapists and psychologists, et cetera, et cetera.
Mhm,
But I
mhm.
think having some sort of media, not media, some sort of supplementary support is also really, really helpful. So
Yeah.
I really have a lot of respect and love for like crisis text line, all these crisis hotlines.
Mhm.
Those are so useful and so important because and I think, the Muslim community could totally benefit from that as well. Um, and so that's something I'm actually looking into as well, because that was initial prompt was the crisis. Like, what do you do when a Muslim person's in crisis? Because the other element too is that I read the stat recently, and like the Washington Post, I think, posted it. I think it was like 1 in 5 police deaths or deaths by I guess fatalities as it relates to confrontation with the police are due to people with having mental
Yeah,
illnesses.
yeah.
So, and part of the problem with that is that when you call 911 and you have a mental health crisis, you're
Mhm.
not getting a doctor, a psychiatrist, or therapist. You're getting a cop. So if you're already
Yeah.
traumatized, and then you're going to be further traumatized being handcuffs. And so that is something that I think why these crisis hotlines are so important, because instead of calling 911, you have somebody who's there to calm you down and get you through that particular moment as you kind of as you and your family members try to gather you and be able to take a moment to die, to assess your options here.
Mhm.
And particularly people who are having suicide ideation, these crisis hotlines are so important because we were talking about saving a life,
Yeah.
right? And again, shout out to crisis text line. I think they're doing fantastic work,
Mhm.
and what their whole process and whole philosophy is really really wonderful.
Um, yes, what they are doing is wonderful, and I think what you are doing is wonderful as well. You mentioned Halcyon, and I want to, for a moment, talk about this journey you're on with this startup, because I think in my head it takes a village. You talked about your
Right.
fellows, right? Talk to me about what mentorship has meant to you along the way, how you've benefited from it. And for someone out there, maybe who's considering the entrepreneurial route, um, and they want mentorship, right? Like, what do you recommend, and what's been your
Yeah.
experience from that perspective?
So I've had some experience. So I've done a few incubator programs through universities and stuff like that. And universities are good in terms of getting the basic academic and educational foundation. But for me, of all of the incubator programs, for me, Halcyon has been the most beneficial to me. Because one, what I really love about Halcyon is the community, right? They're people like from the top, from the CEO to the program managers and coordinators, they all want you to win. And literally on Wednesday, I had a meeting with somebody from one of the Halcyon staffers. They met with me and they've helped me put together almost like a communication event planning strategy. Like that's the type of work. And I so-called graduated in January. So having that constant and continuous support beyond your, program is really useful. And then within the program, having these really powerful mentors like Helen, shout out Helen, who's phenomenal. Like just to have somebody to bounce ideas off of, and having somebody with experience and strategic execution abilities, if you want to call I'm losing my English today.
No, you're not losing it.
What I'm trying to say, right? Like somebody with that level of experience is profound and powerful. Like I've been able to connect with people that I need to help me build my business through my connections with my mentors. Like some of the mentors that Halcyon have are phenomenal, truly, and they really, really helpful. And again, for me, it's not enough to provide educational resources and programming. I have to feel like you genuinely want me to win. You genuinely care about this business, and you get that from the beginning. Like when you step there, and it's not just like the staffers; it's also the other fellows and previous cohorts. Will I've connected with previous cohorts as well, and that has been a really helpful resource as well. So it truly is a community of like-minded people, and that has been really, really helpful. And throughout my entrepreneurship journey, especially with this business, because it's so hard.
How did you find your incubator programs? I know you said you've been through a couple of them, so someone else doesn't know where to start. How do you find it?
I mean, usually it depends. If you want to go through the university route, like usually a lot of the universities that have an entrepreneurship program, they have some sort of incubator. University of Maryland has one. They have a really great one. American University has one, Georgetown, all of the big universities that have MIT, Harvard, all of them have incubator programs. Sometimes your local government will have one.
Okay.
But Halcyon, if you go to Halcyon, just Google Halcyon, apply. They have several different programs that you can apply for. Really, this for me was just doing a Google search, incubator, tech incubator, and then boom. Finding kind of what works with your style and what you want to do, and that are kind of aligned with your values as well. Because part of any type of mentorship or any type of programming, you want to make sure that they're going to be there for you. So in a way, as much as you're interviewing for them, they're interviewing for you, right?
Absolutely.
You got to impress me too.
Absolutely, it's got to be a good fit, both ways.
Absolutely, yeah.
Wow. You have shared so much, but I want to talk about your other baby, and I know that was your favorite, but I want to talk about Common Sense Entertainment, because I watched an episode. What did I watch? Oh my gosh. With the gentleman who was out.
Oh, Eugene, my business partner.
Yes.
Yeah. Eugene Ova, aka I call him Black Clark Kent, aka Walter Cronkite.
Him.
He sounds like Walter Cronkite.
It was so awesome. And I happen to be a foodie, so this episode was right up my alley. So talk to us about how Common Sense Entertainment has grown. And I know it started back in school, right? With you and your business partner, but you've done so much, right, with it to help develop it. What's the key to that? What's the key to a successful business like that? Because I imagine, especially in the media space, in production, it's tough from the outside looking in. What's the key to your success? Because from my vantage point, I was like, oh, this is ready for the big screen. Like, I want more people to see this.
Right.
How do you make it work?
Well, one, I'm a religious person, so fairly religious person, faith. you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
this doing the work and putting my hands in God's let God handling the rest. So that's one. So there's a spiritual side of that. And then
Mhm.
from a more practical side, having the right team. I have the best business partner in the world in Eugene Oba.
Oh,
He's like, you know, we complement each other, our skill set as well as our personalities. I'm a bit of a hothead, not gonna lie. I'm very passionate.
really?
Not hot. Let me not say hothead. I'm very passionate. Let me just say that. Like I'm very like the thing about me when you're under my team, I'm very protective.
Okay.
Like if you are disrespectful to my team members, I'm a different person.
Mm.
I'm a little bit ruthless. And he's the guy that has to calm things down, sweet talking. Me, I'm ready. I'm in kill mode. Like I'm gonna be honest with you. Like I'm like a mama bear. Like I'm a mama grizzly bear with my team.
Yeah.
And then we've had some instances where, you know, a client has been very disrespectful to one of our, and I had to, you know, be professional, but also be ruthless a little
Mhm.
bit. And so he's not like that. He doesn't, not saying he doesn't have a ruthless streak to him. He's efficient and he's great at what he does, but he's nice. He's a nice guy. You know, he's a really nice guy, right? You know, so we balance each other out. And so having
Mhm.
him, you know, me being kind of a business and strategy person, business development strategy side of things, and him being the, you know, technical person, technical brain. You know, these productions that you see, that's Eugene managing and helping, either editing them or leading or directing the editing efforts.
Mhm.
That's, you know, and one thing about Eugene, because we have such great chemistry, I'll give you an example. Like all I have to do with Eugene is, okay, this is my idea, give him some visual references and he gets it. Like
Mm.
that's what happened with our one of our documentaries that we did. I literally said, I want this to look like XYZ. I want it to feel like this, visually look like this, and he nailed it. He and the team nailed it. So I have people like Raheem, and I have people like Eugene. I have Raheem, who's amazing. He's our CMO, our chief marketing person.
Mhm.
Challenging. He's been with us from the beginning. Challenging me, challenging the company, providing great marketing strategy as well as great editorial strategy as well. And he just has an instinct for news and an instinct for marketing. Really, and he's also just a really smart guy.
Yeah.
So just having my core managing and having like great partners that we work with, that we collaborate on to produce these shows and these documentaries. So being able to, I think my biggest gift is talent ID. I
Mm.
know what I need in a person. And I have, you know, my management style is always, I say, it's laissez-faire. Like if I've done the work to research you and interview you, and I've looked at your work and all that stuff, just show up. I expect you to do your work. I'm not gonna micromanage. I don't do micromanaging. Like
Mhm.
that's not
Mhm.
my thing. And so being able to identify talent, and that talent just in terms of skill, but also cultural fit, is super, super important. That's something that I've been very good at, I think. And so we have a fantastic team. And
Mm.
that's really the heart of our success. And of course, having strategy and a vision and being able to execute and having high standards really, really
Mhm.
helps as well. But really, for me, teamwork makes the dream work.
That's so corny.
I
But
know,
true.
but it's true. But it's
Corny but
true.
true. Like that is it. Picking the right team and everything else will fall into place, right? If you choose
Absolutely.
the right talent on the front end.
Absolutely.
Um so you referenced documentaries, and there's one in particular that I'm
Uh-huh.
fascinated by. Um Specifically Radio Raheem. Talk to
Oh,
us
okay.
about
Okay.
I know you had many, but talk to
Yeah.
us for a minute, because I love your stories about the vision for that, right? Sort of why you felt the need to tell the story,
Yeah.
and then how you brought it to life, the execution piece. I love it, but
Yeah. So prior to doing, well, I guess while we were developing Media House, initially Common Sense was called a Media House. It was a it was a media club at University of Maryland. So while I was doing that, I was also the executive producer of a radio show called DM's
Let's
Live
just
Radio.
slide that in, shall we?
Right. And blessings. Like I got to see, I got to see I got to see Ari Lennox before she blew up. I got to see so many young DMV talent and work with them and interview them for that's again in the past. But one of the people that I interviewed was Radio Raheem. And I thought he was so interesting. I was like, wow, dude, you're like a throwback you're a hip hop throwback.
Yes.
You produce, you beatbox, you DJ, you do graffiti, you rap, you're socially conscious. Like what? I just, for me, the idea of a Radio Raheem was just such a fascinating thing. And I was like, and we had featured him on a couple of things. I think our first documentary, and we're like, we got to, and Eugene in particular was such a fan. This is the news guy in him. Eugene's got a news guy. He got his degree at Maryland, being a journalism major. He works for different news organizations. And he continues to work with them. So the news guy, he heard the potential and the talent there too, as well. So, I was fascinated with the idea of Radio Raheem and his story. And then Eugene was like, oh, the talent, he saw the story. And so when I said to you early on, like, all I have to say to Eugene is like kind of give visual cues. I said to Eugene, I said, if we're going to do a Radio Raheem documentary, this is what I want. I want the feel to be like Protect Your Neck by Wu-Tang Clan meets 99 Problems by Jay-Z.
Okay.
Like, that's a look and feel. I was like, that's look and feel. So I gave him those videos. Like, that's the look and feel I want for this documentary, because it's confrontational. He's in your face. He's actually, Radio Raheem is actually a really, really nice guy. But he's an anti-authoritarian type of dude. He's really, really political. And, I thought, wow, let's do this. And it was fun. It was fun. Yeah. It was fun to unpack his story and really like celebrate him.
I love it. Talk to us about the other documentaries, because I know you've done multiple. What's your favorite?
One
if you could say a favorite.
One we're about to do actually is this. The concept of it is a nerd is we're one that's in store is probably might be my favorite. But as of right now, it'll probably be Radio Raheem. But just for me, visually, I think we killed the visuals in terms of how I wanted to feel. I wanted people to get a feel of boom bap hip hop. Like that was what I wanted. And it is also the one we won a few awards for. So of course, as an ambitious person, I love winning awards. And I said, I told my team this year, like, God willing, we'll be working on another documentary. And also, Damn That's Good, of course.
Of course.
I said, folks, we're going for the big awards. Like, let's Webbies, and we're going to be at, God willing, Indie Spirit Festival, all of that. We're going for those. Wow. So let's aim for that. So let's make some content that's going to really shake up the world. So Radio Raheem is probably my favorite.
I love it. So I'm thinking about maybe the college student out there who is multi-passionate, right? As you are, and isn't quite sure where to start, how to organize these ideas, and then as they begin to execute, how to keep track of all the things that go along with maybe a media business, or maybe a startup, right? Maybe they're going into the tech space. Like, I'm putting myself in the shoes of someone who says, I want to do all these things and I think I could do all of them well. Where do I start? Right? What's my first step? Do I start talking to people? Do I start researching? Do I jot out, write down this elaborate plan? And what do you suggest they do first? Maybe top 2 or 3 things for them to think through before they take any other action. Do these 3 things first, because you're doing it well.
I think I'm trying. I would say I always tell my people that I mentor, I always say you should do a SWOT analysis of yourself, right? And if people who are not familiar with the SWOT analysis, this is a thing that you learn in business school and business in general: strengths, threats, opportunities, and weakness, or strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Yep. SWOT. And so first and foremost, do a SWOT analysis of yourself so you can really figure out, okay, what am I good at? What are some weaknesses? What are some areas that I need to improve on? And from there, kind of synthesize what is, okay, people with these type of characteristics, like what do they typically go into? Like what are some fields or some strategies? Or if you don't know what you want to do, if you do know what you want to do, okay, so how do these strengths and weaknesses and opportunities, how can you leverage that in a particular career path? What does that look like? How does that translate? Mm-hmm. And then from there, I would recommend finding people who do that, who are in that particular business, either as business partners. So in case for me, for Common Sense Entertainment, like Eugene being being a production person, was for me being able to find somebody, whether it be a productions, a so-called, they call it, in the business where the entrepreneurship world, they call it technical founder, right? If you're building a business. So if you're not the technical founder, finding a technical founder, right? Or finding, or deciding whether you wanted to develop that side of your portfolio, so to speak. And then looking into, I really believe, I'm a strong believer in, and this may be the business school kid in me coming out, I'm a strong believer in understanding the market, right? What's the market need, right? Really doing that analysis. What are the legal barriers to getting in this particular industry? What is the, knowing your numbers? I put out some numbers, like knowing your numbers, right? For example, in mental health, $527 billion industry by 2030. That's how much that industry is going to be worth by 2030, God willing, right? Being able to see those numbers. So understanding the market, understanding, they teach us in school Porter's 5 forces. Like that framework is super helpful, right? Understanding, what are the substitutes in that particular industry? What are the competitors, your rivals? What does the supply look like? All these different areas. Like you have to understand the business of the business before you get into business. And then I would say look into mentorship. I would look into, different incubator programs, look to really understand, to get some help in kind of putting that business together. But I believe in being prepared. Yeah. That's the most important thing. You yourself have to be honest with yourself and say, am I ready to do the business? And are my weaknesses detrimental to the business, potentially detrimental to the business, right? Can my weaknesses be supplemented by either having a technical founder or learning, or do I have the time and capacity to learn whatever deficiencies I may to be able to handle that, take care of that, compensate for those deficiencies, or I don't want to call them deficiencies, but like blind spots. And then, what am I good at? Yeah. Like I recognized early on that I can sell. I said, okay, that's a really good trait to have as an entrepreneur. Yeah. And I was really good at strategy. Strategy is what I'm really, really good at. It's really figuring out, really doing that market analysis is something. It was my favorite thing at school as well. Strategic thinking was my favorite course in my MBA program. Love it. And so knowing what your strengths are. Yeah. And then part of it too is also, and this is something as a lifelong entrepreneur is continuing to not settle for your so-called expertise in that particular field. I still read branding and strategy books and Harvard business cases, and I still listen to and watch, different people. So different thought leaders in the space. I still listen to podcasts in that, in particular space. For example, I mentioned early on, like looking at people, finding people who you want to be, like, or who you want to emulate. Because, I believe in, like, there's no point in reinventing the wheel. Like, pretty much. Don't waste your time.
Yep.
So finding people that either reaching out to them as maybe being mentors or just following them on Instagram. Like there's a couple people that I follow on Instagram that I'm like from a brand strategy perspective that I really, really admire and love and really read a lot of their work.
Mm-hmm.
So doing these different things. But again, I believe the best thing you can do for whether it be a new job or pursuing an entrepreneurial venture, being prepared and being honest with yourself and what you can do and what your capacity is.
Learning the business of the business.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that because it's not all fun and games. It's not all glitz and glam.
Yeah.
You have to know the numbers,
No.
right? And do the research. I love you. You shared so much. Oh my gosh. I can't wait to write these show notes. And never do I say that. Believe me when I say never. So one book you'd recommend?
Oh, there's a lot.
Oh,
That's
okay.
difficult.
Then give us three. Give us three.
There's a lot of good business books.
Mm-hmm.
Shout out to Kogat School of Business for giving me a really good education because I like a lot of the books that they recommended. Branding Against the Machine.
Okay.
Is a really good book.
Mm-hmm.
I would say a new book that I'm going to look into. I read a little bit about it, but it's Marketing Strategy for the Little Guy. Ooh. So basically, it's basically marketing as like, I guess, making marketing for like small businesses and stuff. I think that's useful. Mm-hmm. Running Lean by Ash Mora.
Ooh, I've heard that one.
Yeah, it's a good one. Smarter Execution is another one. I can't remember who wrote that one, but Smarter Execution. If I was in my room, I would point to it. But and then I would say it's not a book, but I read this in my IT management class in business school. Mm-hmm. It's called Strategy as Ecology. Okay. It's a Harvard. It's a Harvard business article or case study. I think it was. I really recommend it because it conceptualizes business as more than just a one-on-one transaction, but more of like thinking about your business as part of a larger ecosystem. And how do you manage the different stakeholders? This is really I refer to it or I look at that article at least once a month or so.
Wow.
Just because I like the ideas in it,
Right.
One of the things about me is that even though I was an English major in college, I didn't really care for the literature too much. My favorite courses in English were the critical theory. I know that sounds weird. Your face is giving that.
I forgot you could see my face. It sounded weird.
So like, when you're an English major, you're reading like Shakespeare and all that stuff. But also part of the discipline of an English major is like, they have like, at least at Maryland, they had critical theory. So I was actually more interested in critical theory than I was actually interested in the novels that I was reading.
Yeah, wow.
So me having read a theory book, loving theory, reading this strategy as ecology theory was like right up my alley. Like I'm into that type of stuff. I love theory. Mm-hmm. So
I love it. Favorite podcast, and then I'm done.
Ooh, favorite podcast. I love the Knowledge Project. It's one of my favorites. It's Shane Parrish runs it. I'm also into a bunch of sports podcasts. I love Righty's House. I'm a big Arsenal fan. You can't see it. Well, I can't see it. I have if you follow me on Instagram, you guys already know, or you all, rather not guys, you folks will already know that I'm a big, massive Arsenal fan. You see it on my Twitter. You see it on my Instagram.
Everywhere.
But Righty's everywhere. I'm big in it. Today I wore my Arsenal scarf to troll people. I'm a big troll. I'm gonna be honest as well. Big troll. I was meeting somebody who's a rival fan. I really wanted just to troll them.
Wow.
So yeah.
Really, MaBinti? Really?
I'm a troll. No, sports. And especially now that Arsenal's good, I have to bring it up. I have to do it. I'm obligated to do it. I've dealt with so much pain for the last 20 years as an Arsenal fan. I have earned the right to troll back, ruthlessly troll other people. So it is what it is.
Yes, it is. Thank you for
Yeah.
today.
No,
This has
thank you.
been awesome. I mean, I knew it would be just based on our last conversation, but this, you've shared so much. And I can't wait to capture all of it in the show notes and share the resources, because there's a lot of value here
Right.
for our communities. And I'm excited to provide the platform to share it. So thank you for your time today. Let me ask you this. You mentioned your social handles. How can we find you? How can we support you? How can we find ZIPA Health and support as well?
Okay, so ZIPA Health is still a work in progress. So,
Mhm.
but Alternative Comments Entertainment, you can follow us at comments sense, I think _ENT. That's
Okay.
a Twitter handle. You can just look for Comments Entertainment, and you see like a black bulb. That's us.
Perfect.
Black and white bulb, light bulb. You'll see that's us. We're on
Mhm.
YouTube. We're on Vimeo. We're on Instagram. We also have a show called Fit to Speak, which is a news program. Definitely, probably one of our favorite and one of our best shows. Is we're really trying to change the news programming landscape by
Mhm.
providing people really good, factually accurate news and unbiased news. So I would say that CSC TV is another one. So yeah, this YouTube. And if you want to follow me and hear my personal thoughts on stuff, you can find me at Twitter. On Twitter, it's at MaBinti6,
Mhm.
and you can also find me. Am I on Instagram? Yeah, I am, but
You know
I'm
me.
mostly on Twitter.
Mostly
Yeah, I'm
on
mostly
Twitter?
on Twitter. Mostly on Twitter, trolling. There's a lot of trolling going on. Yeah. I mean, it's like my Twitter feed is a little bit of trolling. Not a lot of trolling. I would say like maybe 60% trolling, but then occasionally I'll drop some wisdom. I'll be honest with you. Occasionally I'll drop a smart gem here and there, or something introspective there.
I love it. I
But if you
love
want
it.
to follow me on a more serious professional level, you can always find me on LinkedIn. I am
Okay.
pretty active there as well.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. This has been amazing. And I appreciate you. And I know the community does as well.
No, thank you. This has been a fantastic opportunity. Thank you again, Tony, for connecting us. And this has been a fantastic conversation. I really enjoy talking to you, and
Oh,
having somebody else pick my brain for once. It's been fantastic, and I welcome the opportunity to share wisdom. I like doing this anyway, so this is a wonderful opportunity for me.
awesome. Talk to you soon.
Yes,
All
have a
right.
good one.
You too. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Keys to the Office podcast. We hope you found today's episode informative and empowering. Remember, earning what you deserve is within reach with the right tools and resources. Don't forget to check out our website for additional information as well as some coaching opportunities. Also, join us for the next episode as we continue to empower Black women to take control of their careers and reach their full earning potential. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you in the next episode.